right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. It's a State of the Nation where we talk about matters, politics, and everything in between. We have quite a number of subtopics to touch on, but let me introduce my guest one more time. Honorable Danson Mungatana, Senator for Tana River is here. Thank you so much for making time. Honorable Edwin Sifuna, Senator for Nairobi, is also here with us. Asante sana for making time. And Honorable John Kagusha, Member of Parliament from Kurueni, is also here with us. Let's start off with the dailies and this front page of the Standard, gentlemen. Freedom has come. At least 5 high-profile graft and criminal suspects are off the hook after their cases were lined up for termination by the DPP, who literally handed the mostly Kenya Kwanza allies whose campaign slogan was "Freedom is coming" a major reprieve. And you see a list of them there off the hook now. And Kagusha, I'll start with you now. Does this mean that there was witch hunt from the onset, or is there something about intimidation from the current government that now forces them to withdraw?
Of course, there was witch hunt. Who doesn't know, for example, Mithika Linturi had many cases put on him, and most of them were actually far-fetched, and you could actually see that someone was trying to curtail his political activities in Meru and in the country at large. And can you imagine, for example, that Mithika Linturi was being accused of rape of someone in a hotel at, and it was all hogwash. And I'm happy that at last the DPP is able to withdraw some of those cases that were not adding value to our justice system. It were better we use the justice system to deal with criminals and to deal with the people and issues that deserve our attention as a country. Otherwise, spending so much time of our Kenyan imagination on things that are trivial, things that are, we know very well they are politically instigated, is not right. Who doesn't know, for example, Aisha Jumwa was being accused of murder, fraud cases, and every other day she would get one case on top of another. And all this clearly was because of her position, especially because of her refusal to dance the handshake tunes. And for that reason, she was pushed very, very hard. Yeah. Can you imagine she was accused of killing someone, you know? And we know some of these things were being stage managed from one point to another. So we are happy that at last some of those politically instigated cases are actually being put to rest. Yeah. And I hope as many people as possible are able to have a reprieve. Yeah. And then the criminal justice system is used for the purpose in which it is supposed to be serving. Okay. I'm also happy, for example, even for teachers who had been transferred. Yeah. Almost retirement, you are 55 years of age, you are a head teacher in a primary school, you've been there for all your life, and then you are pushed to 2 counties away from where you live. And then you have to go and start a life all over again behind a shopping center somewhere. You have to buy a stove. You are an elderly man almost retiring. You leave your family, sometimes even your ailing mother and grandmother who are under your care at home. And you have to go away, 2 counties away. Can you imagine? And these complaints were falling on dead ears. Now I'm happy that at last freedom is here, that these kind of teachers now can also apply to go back home and retire, in the comfort of your family as they continue dispensing or discharging the duties that they have been employed to discharge. Okay. So we can feel the freedom in the air. Okay. And I think at last that intimidation must come to an end. And I believe and I know that this government will not be engaging in that kind of witch hunt anymore. Okay. Everyone is able to walk freely every day and articulate his issues as they wish. Can you imagine, for example, the opposition is already now on the campaign trail. And, I mean, they are also feeling the freedom. They are also using it. They are experiencing the freedom in the air. Okay. Yeah.
Honorable Mungatana, is there a need to review the justice system? Because there are reputations on the line here. When a case is put up and then it is withdrawn, is there a need to review the justice system, in your view, in relation to this issue?
Trevor, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I want to tell you, the country needs to understand that we are led by a constitution. And the constitution, it's a living document. It bites both sides. Yeah. Sometimes you may want it to interpret it in your way, but the constitution has the other way. And every time Kenyans keep forgetting that for as long as someone is innocent before being proven guilty, the constitution that we passed says they are innocent. However, in our mindset, the moment someone is charged, no, he's guilty. And it is led by the papers. You know, the papers, the press, they run a narrative, especially if you're a high-profile person. But the Constitution is also the same document that created the presidency, the judges, the DPP. So this is a creature of the Constitution, applying the same Constitution. In Article 157 of the Constitution, the DPP has been given power to determine which cases to prosecute, which cases not to prosecute, which cases to start. He has also been given power to remove cases that he has put there. The only limitation he has is that if you have prosecuted an individual until the case for prosecution has been closed, that means you have brought in all your witnesses, then if you decide to withdraw the case, you apply 87A, then that person is acquitted. But if it is before that, then you have to come, the Constitution says you come with reasons before the court to give the reasons to the court. So as it stands now, these people, contrary to what the papers are reporting, they are not off the hook. They have to go before the court. The prosecutor has to come with the reasons before the court, because I think none of them, their cases had been closed. I don't think any of these people had their defense. They are on the defense. They are still at the prosecution stage. The Constitution says this same person, except for court-martial cases, when you are involving the army and those armed forces people, then the prosecution, the DPP has no role in those ones. He has no such powers. But then the prosecutorial power, we have given it to an officer called the DPP. And how did we appoint him? This guy didn't just walk into that office. He was nominated through a competitive process. That's what Kenyans said should happen. And then their representative vetted the people who said they want to be DPP. And then the president, who we elected at that time, appointed him. So this is a creature of a constitution office. He's a constitution office holder, and we put them there through our representatives, through the president. And when he's exercising those powers, why are we coming back and saying, oh, there's a problem? According to me, he's exercising his constitutional powers, and the Constitution itself has said, if he has finished his witnesses, those people stand acquitted. But if he has not finished his witnesses, at any stage of that prosecution, he has to give reasons to the court. So when they come to court, then he has to give the reasons. If the reasons are acceptable to the court, because the court can refuse, by the way. If the reasons are acceptable to the court, then they go. So I see it purely from the point of view that we have to live with the Constitution we have passed. We don't have to live with rumors and innuendos from reports that are second-hand, in the sense that they are not legal positions. So that's how I see it.
All right. Sifuna, having a legal background, what do you read into this, considering the timing, that this case is just being withdrawn when the vetting of some of them were cabinet secretaries, nominees, and PSs? The vetting is starting on Monday.
First, let me say that I hold a different perspective of the requirement to provide reasons to the court for withdrawal of the cases. In my understanding of Article 157.8, I don't think there is a difference between on the requirement for the court's permission on whether the prosecution has closed its case or not. In my understanding of this article, at all stages, when the prosecutor exercises this power of withdrawal, discontinuance of a case, it says that he may not discontinue a prosecution without the permission of the court. So I understand this to mean that whether it is after the close of a prosecution or even before, the prosecutor has to satisfy the court that there is sufficient reason why he wants to terminate those cases. But from a purely political view, Trevor, there is no coincidence in politics. The president understands that these matters, especially the matters pending before court, are questions that are going to be put to the people he has nominated for cabinet, selection. And I know that the selection committee has just been approved. So there is no coincidence in the timing or in the intention of the withdrawal of these cases. One of the things that has come up is that we tried to ring-fence these public offices from external influence, including providing in Article 157, I think it is 157.5, as some sort of security of tenure, where the person appointed in line with the procedure that my learned senior has outlined, then has a fixed term of 8 years to try and give him some sense of security in the office. But then what we are being told is that either at the point of initiation of these prosecutions, there was that undue influence that we were trying to, insulate him against, or that undue influence is being applied now. You cannot tell us that it can only be at the point of initiation of those prosecutions. Now, there is a further consideration that is put upon the prosecutor when he is exercising these powers. And this is found in Article 157, Subarticle 11, that he shall have regard to, number one, public interest, number two, the interest of the administration of justice, and the need to prevent and avoid abuse of the legal process. This is the responsibility that is put on the prosecutor, both when he decides to prosecute and when he decides to terminate a case. Now, my brother here, we come to these shows and we talk, as freely as we want to talk. But the fact of the matter is there are certain things that have happened on the ground that precipitated these charges. When, for instance, you talk about trumped-up charges against Aisha for murder, I am telling you, my brother, these particular acts happened. I was there during the by-election in Kilifi, for one of the wards in Kilifi, and somebody died. There's a gentleman called Ngumbao who is now in the ground. It is a fact that he died, and he died of a bullet wound, and that bullet wound was from a gun owned by somebody, shot by a human being. So when we come here, we can talk all we want, but let us not try and paint this picture that all of these things are in fact trumped up charges. So as far as I know, the only charges that were withdrawn against her were the accusations of stealing money from the NGCDF for the constituency she was representing, but the criminal charges are still in place. And all I am saying is that when the prosecutor exercises these powers, number one, he must satisfy the court that there is sufficient reason in all cases. And number two, he must have regard to the public interest. It is in the interest of the public that justice is served. It is in the interest of the family of Ngumbao that they get justice. It is in the interest of the people of Malindi that the truth about whether money was lost at their CDF offices or not is a fact. And when you look at all this, don't tell us that freedom has come. Freedom has come only to Ruto's friends, because there are other people who are not in there. And in fact, the Standard has made reference to this. They are saying that freedom for Ruto's allies. Because yesterday, my brother from Bumula, the member of parliament for Bumula, Honorable Wamboka, asked the question, why has this freedom not come for the likes of Waluke? So if freedom has come, let it come for everyone. And the fact that you see Baba campaigning out there, that freedom has not been brought by the Tanga government. It is here under Article 37. We have political rights. We have the right to assembly. We have the right to visit our people. This is not something new. And in fact, you shouldn't say, that now they are campaigning. Because my brother, William Ruto, started campaigns for 2022 way back in 2013. Immediately they were elected. That is the freedom he was enjoying under what you want now shame and call.
So have you started campaigning now?
No, it is not. He is the one who said that Raila started campaigning and that it is part of the freedom that they have brought. We have a constitution that guarantees us a right to assembly. We don't need anybody's permission to go out and have a conversation with the people. And you can interpret it as much as you want, or as how you like it. You can say it is campaigns. You can say it is a tour. You can say whatever it is. But don't tell us that it is newfound freedom brought about by the new government, because we gave ourselves this constitution in 2010, and it guarantees us all these rights.
Okay.
Yes.
Gagusha, is this freedom or undue influence?
Well, it's freedom. If you look at...
But why is it selective, like Senator?
No, it is. I mean, it will apply to every other person who has found themselves charged or with trumped-up charges. You know, those kind of charges are mainly for politicians. They are not ordinarily for normal Kenyans. If you look at what was happening for the last 5 years, you realize that Kenyan democracy had been suppressed in a very big way. Particularly when the handshake came about. Many people who went against the handshake found themselves with those charges. I mean, my brother here, Sifuna, has talked about someone who died in Kilifi. It is true someone died, but he also knows the ingredients of being charged with these kind of murder cases. You have to have had the intention and the action. And if you look at the MP, for example, was she in any way involved in that action? You know, and so even if that has not been done away with, it's just a matter of time. I'm sure it will be, because we know, and I mean Kenyans know. You know, Kenyans are also above average of intelligence, so they understand, they know, and they know what has been happening in this country, that members who did not go the handshake way found themselves in trouble, or at every corner. And so at this point in time, there's going to be many politicians who will have to shed off all those cases that had been put on them. In fact, those cases were being put on Ruto's friends, and that was clear. He has said it many times when he was also campaigning, and even most of them did say that, that if you are a close ally of Ruto, someone went out of their way to look for something to put on you. And so when these cases start disappearing one by one, I think Kenyans should also understand what was happening. And because Kenyans are not new in this country, including my brother Sifuna, he is not new in this country. All of us have been here. We know. We have talked about it on this show many times. And I remember one time we had a very heated debate here when you asked me, and why, Kagusha, are you not having a case as well? Yeah. And I am telling you, probably if I went up the ranks so closely to Ruto, probably I would also have been fixed in some form of ways. So we know that for sure there were those cases that were put on Kenyans. And that's why one of the first people to resign and to leave office was DCI. Why do you think he did that? He did that because he knew he was doing something which was not right. He knows that he used, or his office was used to create some of those charges, and he had to leave the office and find somewhere else to go and cool off. And those are some of the things that we are saying going forward will not be tolerated. And that is where you see we have welcomed any sort of opposition to the government, because we find it okay that let us have an opposition there and let us have government here. Why? Because even Ruto would wish his ministers perform. And with that kind of opposition, if whatever they do will be questioned by opposition on this other side, that is going to help his cabinet secretaries to perform. They're not going to be sleeping on the job. And unlike where we saw the handshake government trying to protect the cabinet secretaries against that kind of any kind of criticism, and that's how we ended up having wastage of resources. For example, putting so much money on Uhuru Park, which of course you know we have not even fed Kenyans, and we had to put so much money there. We put so much money again at Uhuru Gardens, you know, billions of shillings. So it's good, and that kind of criticism, positive, constructive criticism, I think would be very important in running government. And so yes, there's freedom in the air, and Kenyans are able to express themselves now without fear. By the way, do you know many Kenyans will not actually use their phones to make calls? Many times a lot of Kenyans have found themselves using WhatsApp calls because they feared they're going to be recorded, or someone is tapping into their conversations, and sooner than later again you find yourself in trouble based on your conversations. So right now, as we are getting new DCI, Kenyans will be free now to engage in free discussions, political debate, political engagements is not criminal at all, and one should never find themselves again in court because of association.
All right, let me bring in Mungatana on this.
As we have actually brought the issue of Article 38 of the Constitution and Article 36 on freedom of association, Article 36, and we have Article 37 on political freedoms. You know, they are also human rights. They are first-class rights, actually. You can associate. You can make any political decision you wish. And all that is going to be in play now as we move forward.
Okay. Mungatana, I'd like to hear your views on Sifuna's statement that this freedom seems to be selective.
Well, I hold a different opinion with respect to my learned friend and colleague senator, that it's in respect to the president's allies. I think the fact of holding office that is a conspicuous office or having held a conspicuous office makes you conspicuous when the law is applied to you. For example, if for whatever reason my learned friend here or myself or Mheshimiwa Kagushia walks out here and there's a traffic officer there who says, oh, your tires are gone, it would be news. Trevor will be reading here, oh, legislators are driving tires without whatever. But any other person who is arrested, it's not news. So the people who are high profile have that, let me call it misfortune or disadvantage of their things being illuminated all the time. So for me, I see it like it's not truly, you can't say all of them are the president's allies. But I also want to agree with my colleague, MP, Mheshimiwa Kagushia, that there was sort of like targeting. A lot of our campaign time, you would hear this again and again and again. And you would hear this, that why is it that it is only on this side that we are seeing arrests and prosecutions, arrests and prosecution. And I thought now, even moving away from the politics, it's not a very good thing that our police force is in any way used for political purposes. We used to have the infamous Friday shika periods, where the DCI, the then DCI, decided that he was going to be a movie star. And he would get all the TV cameras, go to, just to effect arrest. And for many years, you know this person, you know where he lives. Then you send him police officers and what, and then you issue a statement saying he's guilty. You know, just playing with the minds. And it has never left my mind that Senator Malala, you know, former senator, you know, you send people all over. He is a senator. You surround his house, you try to jump up, and cameras are all over, just because he's not voting the way you want. It was a terrible time. And we should, I think, the vetting processes should also check the, you know, the state of minds of some of these public officers. If they want to be actors and actresses, they should never be qualified for some of those positions, because it is just bad. It is bad. Let us not use the police officers and the officers that are public officers to politicize some of these processes. Let it just be normal. If it is a person you know where you can get him, call him, come. If he's disobeyed the summonses, then you can follow him. But a senator, you know, a PS, a DC, you know, a chief, why send 20 people to go and get a chief? You know, why send 20 people to go and get a county assembly, you know, officer? I think it is, we need to balance it, and going forward, let us not make the criminal process like as if it's something dirty that is happening. If someone has an issue to answer, let them answer in the normal way.
Okay. And let me bring
that reminds me of Dede Nyoro.
Yeah.
You remember when he was under siege here in Citizen?
Okay, let's bring Sifuna into this a bit. And Sifuna, in your understanding of the law, is there some sort of an overreach here? Because the DPP is the one who allows cases to proceed. Then at some point says they want to withdraw it. So what has he learned now that he didn't know then?
You know, it is quite interesting that the people who are at the front line of actually undermining and depriving people of the same rights that are, given to us under this constitution, are now the ones who are pontificating, and they've become the greatest defenders of our constitution. I do believe and agree that, in fact, we have in the past Jubilee regime, for which William Ruto was a central figure, we have had excesses of police. We have borne the brunt of these things. We were the ones who were being tear-gassed on the streets here for exercising our rights under Article 37. You're talking about arbitrary arrests. I remember there was a time they hold people like Florence Mutua on a Friday to a cell in Nairobi here on trumped-up charges. These are not the people who can come here and tell us anything about observance of the rights. You're talking about a newfound freedom in the air. If you look at the past 5 or so years, Trevor, when William Ruto has been on the campaigns, he has been allowed to say whatever else he felt like saying in the public without any consequence. All of his allies. If you look at even the language that was being employed against the head of state, and you remember even the former President Uhuru would at some point just refrain and say, wacha wanitusi, wacha waseme vile wanataka, hiyo ni haki yao. So it is not anything that you've brought to the table. Number 2, there are millions and millions of hustlers who are in jail cells. They are also waiting for you to finish bringing this freedom to the big fish, like Kinaisha Jumwa and Kinalinturi. There are people in jails here in Nairobi for possession of bang, for two rolls of bang. There are people who are arrested for loitering, drunk and being drunk and disorderly. All sorts of things, including people who are picked up from noisy clubs, a matter that Trevor knows very well, who are also waiting to be released. So when you say that freedom is here, extend this freedom to everyone. Number 3, my brother, let me tell you that, I have seen the schedule for vetting is already out. On Monday, the committee on appointments is starting with Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi on Monday, 17th October. So there is a rush to try and spruce up some of these nominees for this particular vetting. But I can tell you this. The question of does somebody have an ongoing criminal case or a conviction only deals with one limb, one qualification for appointment to public service. Yeah. That is the question of personal integrity. Maybe that can be cleared. But I am telling you, you cannot withdraw someone's incompetence. You cannot withdraw their illiteracy. You cannot enforce suitability on somebody for public office by just withdrawing a case. At the end of the day, we know that some of these names that have been proposed here, it doesn't matter. You know what they say, you can't put lipstick on a pig. It doesn't matter what you do to some of these people. The truth of the matter is they do not qualify to be cabinet secretaries, and these are matters that will still bring before the committee. Yeah. On Malala's case, my brother, you have just said here that there are some people who like to over-dramatize things. The facts have emerged from Malala's case, and those days he was my friend, And I remember him calling me to the police station here at Nairobi area, saying, he's been arrested. It turned out that that entire fiasco had actually been directed by Malala himself. He was the director of that show, So some of these examples, you shouldn't even bring them here because we know the circumstances around some of those things that were happening. But it's true that there have been cases of overreach. There have been cases of abuse of police power. There have been cases of even abuse of prosecutorial powers. Even we as advocates, sometimes people bring to you criminal cases. They've been charged and they want you to represent them. And you look at the charges and you can see that this is not a matter over which the DPP applied themselves. I remember even in the first term of Jubilee, there was a time when President Uhuru Kenyatta famously went to Parliament with a list of people who were facing corruption charges. Yeah. And when you looked at the list and the charges that were being allegedly proposed against those people, you could see that the DPP had not exercised in his mind, in line with his powers under the Constitution, that he is not a conveyor belt, that you don't just receive a file from EACC and you prosecute. You must apply your mind to the requirements for administration of justice, the public interest, and you as a prosecutor should know that you have a case that you're able to sustain, that the evidence is there, before you make that decision to prosecute. Yeah. You cannot have 13 witnesses testify, then you come and withdraw a case and tell us that it's on the basis of lack of evidence. You should evaluate that evidence. I remember one of the cases in which I appeared was for the current Deputy Speaker in the National Assembly, Gladys Bos-Cholet. And we had almost 9 witnesses testifying in court, and all of them, you could not see, in fact, they were exonerating the accused persons. And you ask the ODPP, why are we even in court? Here? Why are we here? You know? So there have been cases of abuse, and we are hoping. But you know, the people who are saying that, oh, freedom is here, give these people time. I can assure you, Trevor, these people will do exactly the same things that they accused President Uhuru of doing. In the fullness of time, you will see it.
But Sifuna, the CS nominees will go through. The CS nominees, will they all go through? Because you don't even have the numbers to...
Now, that is the problem we have in Kenya. That is the problem we have in Kenya, that everything is about numbers. We have forgotten that the criteria has been set for us under Article 73 on how people become public officers, state officers. If really it is just about numbers, then even this vetting is an academic exercise. Why should it be about numbers? Why should I, as Sifuna, if the person who's being vetted is from my community or from my political party, turn a blind eye to the requirements of the Constitution? We should return to a place where it doesn't matter whether you are an opposition MP or a government, government party MP, we should all objectively agree that we can find better people. If you ask Mungatana, who comes from the coast, to find a better person for certain positions, he will bring you a dozen. There are many.
Let me say
lastly, Trevor. Lastly,
he's outnumbered here.
There was this question of phone calls. You know, if you are speaking to your mother on WhatsApp, what is this you are saying? You have to call your mother on a clandestine, encrypted line. What is this you are saying? You know, only criminals want to hide this communication. A vast majority of Kenyans have no problem just calling their family, their friends on regular phones. So these people who are complaining that their phones were being listened to, I am telling you, all these people are criminals.
Let me just come in on the issue that my learned friend and colleague, Senator Sifuna, raised about these people are incompetent. Even if they are removed from the criminal charge list, they are still incompetent. I just wanted to say this. The process for vetting is done at the National Assembly. Unfortunately, the Senate does not participate in it. And contrary to what happens in the U.S., because in the U.S. it is the Senate that does the vetting, not the Congress. But anyway, it is them who do that process. According to me, before the president nominates those people, there are processes that go through. And they are people who work in the back room of the presidential campaign office. And when he succeeds, there are people who work in the back office of the president-elect and now the president. Those people have various competencies. And those people apply their minds to who should be in which position, who ought to stand where, who should be nominated where. They try to balance the nominees across ethnic, across regional balance, and female, gender, whatever. They try to do all those things to the best of their ability. So by the time somebody makes it to the list, you know, out of 54 million Kenyans, by the time Mheshimiwa Sifuna and myself, we met to the list of the 47, there's something about us that needs to be looked at again. By the time someone also, out of the 54 million Kenyans, makes it to the list of 22, or thereabouts, there are 25, I think, in total, there's something to them. Surely you don't pick anybody and put them there. So I think...
Some people say it's political, loyal.
Well, political also is, then they should have picked anybody else. Why did there are so many politicians, but they also rested on this particular person? So it is arguable that there's something about these people. My own take is that we should ignore some of these views that say, oh, these people are not good, or this. Let the National Assembly sit down, apply its mind, make its recommendations, and come up with a decision. And I want to pick up that issue of politicians, Trevor. There's this very wrong narrative that is run by media, that the moment that you are a politician, you are not a technocrat. You are not, and especially if you failed. If then you are appointed as CS or you are appointed in other government capacity, people say, oh, you are rewarding failed politicians. I mean, what is wrong with a politician being a member of a board of directors? Or what is wrong with a politician being a cabinet secretary? What is wrong with a politician being a PS? I have argued, and I argue this point all the time, that me as a lawyer, Mheshimiwa Sifuna as a lawyer, if today I'm to choose even a member of my party as against Sifuna to be a cabinet secretary, I will go for him because he's not only a professional, but he has added something to it. He has dealt with the people. If it's a Dr. Boni Khalwale, for example, and another doctor who all his life has been in the clinic, if I'm to choose between them two, who should pick my leader, I will choose him to be my cabinet secretary. This issue, they are both professionals, but I want to deal with someone who has dealt with the human aspect of life. I tell you, some of these people who went to Harvard and did what, when they come and they bring these economic policies that say all of you, you should be fired, you should do, that job that gives you that 30,000 and 20,000 or even 10,000 in sweeping the DC's office, gives you status in my village, gives you some, it means a lot. So before you touch that guy with your Harvard economics, think about it. So I would trust another person who has dealt with humans, who knows the suffering, who has been under those trees, has been in those pubs, has been in church, and knows the people. To lead me, I would surrender my fate to such a person more than what you people in the media have been calling technocrats. So I hope that we don't run this narrative. Let these gentlemen who have been proposed be answered, be questioned according to their competences, not necessarily whether did you run for MP, did you not run, so you are not good because you are a politician. I think we should remove those biases, give them a chance as Kenyans. If Parliament, this select committee finds them unsuitable, then they can bring other people. But if not, let us work with them.
All right, I have to take a commercial break right now. When you come back, we're talking about the court temporarily barring the PAC from advertising for position of Chief Administrative Secretary. Should those positions even exist in the first place? But I've seen an advert still on the Standard here. We'll come back with that in just a bit.